Abby, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, 1 Minute Off. If you're anything like me, you love a good movie that can seamlessly blend comedy and horror. I especially love a movie that can do both of those things and also have a cool-ass monster in it. The ridiculous, over-the-top monster threat movies are some of my favorite types, when they're done well, of course. And I cannot believe that I had not seen one of the most iconic monster movies ever that, blends comedy and horror better than anything I've ever seen in my life. Better than any movie that has attempted anything similar to it has done. Of course, the movie I'm referring to is Tremors. Starring Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, and Finn Carter. Yes, I'm talking about the giant worm movie from the 90s. Or, sorry, worms.
Be advised, however, there are two more mother humpers.
Tremors is a 1990 film directed by Ron Underwood, which sounds like an adult film name, and produced by Universal that is truly like nothing else I've ever seen before. I guess, other than Dune, because of the war. Now, okay, as a disclaimer, it's a little embarrassing to say, but not only have I never seen Tremors before, I've never seen Kevin Bacon in anything before. I have this running joke with my partner because I referred to him as supposed actor Kevin Bacon one time, when in fact he's actually, been a professional actor for many, many decades now.
I don't know how I got this reputation for being a serious actor, but
I genuinely thought he was just the guy that sang Footloose, and that's not even right. That's Kenny Loggins. And even though this is currently the only movie I've seen with him, I've never even seen Footloose before. I genuinely think this is some of his best work. As I was editing the script, I also realized he was in Friday the 13th too, so I guess I just didn't put it together that was Kevin Bacon. That's on me. Anyway, Tremors is it's one of the most fun movies ever made.
Anything like this before? Oh, sure, Earl. Everybody knows about him. We just didn't tell you.
It's one of those rare ones that has a little bit of every genre in it. You've got action and comedy and drama and horror and sci-fi, and it's kind of a western and even more. It's truly something in it for everybody. This movie will last forever as a staple of 90s filmmaking, especially in an era right before CGI fully took over. There's no CGI in this, it's just puppetry, animatronics, and miniatures, which is crazy to think about nowadays. I love Tremors, and I really think you would too if you haven't seen it, so do pause the video here if you don't want spoilers, or you want to experience Kevin Bacon's beautiful string of constant swear words for yourself.
Oh man, I hate this shit.
But if you've seen it before, stick around and let's chat about it for a bit. As always, thank you for clicking on the video. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll like me enough to subscribe, but hey, don't worry about it. No worries. You don't have to. Tremors begins with this beautiful shot of Kevin Bacon pissing over the side of a cliff. This is a really good introductory shot because, right away we know this guy's a little rough around the edges. He's a bit of a rascal, and he's also, used to peeing in the desert, I guess. Also, if I don't say his name now, I'm going to refer to him as Kevin Bacon the whole time. So this is Valentine McKee. Val lives and works with his best friend Earl Bassett, who is played by Fred Ward, and they are handymen who live in the teeny tiny town of Perfection, Nevada. Population 14. Yep, it's just these two rough and tumble boys out here smoking ciggies and doing handyman things in the desert, just living the cowboy lifestyle. They got a cool truck, they drive fast on the roads to cool music, and they do odd jobs for the local folk, which there are really not a lot of. And of course, they both want to get out of this podunk town one day. One of my favorite scenes happens right away. As they're driving to their next task, the boys spot another truck in the distance, a beautiful red truck. And they remark about how there's supposed to be a new seismologist student working out here. And Val gets especially excited because he's heard that it's a lady.
Do it. That's supposed to be a girl.
He goes into this whole spiel about his perfect woman.
You will have long blonde hair, big green eyes, world-class breasts, ass that won't quit, and legs that go all the way up.
And that old trope wherein the ugly girl is actually incredibly gorgeous. Even, with the glasses and the frumpy clothes. Yeah, that's right here. Kevin Bacon has these wildly high expectations. And when they finally do meet her, she's just, has sunscreen on her nose. And she's not really that tall, and her hair is brown, and ugh, yuck. Oh wow, what a not at all gorgeous woman, for sure. I just love how taken aback Kevin Bacon is here. Rhonda, the student, is out here studying, Tremors in the room. And she tells these two that she's actually been getting some really, really weird readings on her equipment. But, disappointed that she's not a sex bomb Val just kind of drives away. But Earl, his best friend, knows he's got to lower his standards because obviously Rhonda's the love interest of Val for the rest of the movie. Eventually, they come to their hometown of Perfection. And we pretty much meet everybody in town. We have Melvin, the bratty teenager, Bert and Heather Gummer, played by Michael Gross, yes, the dad from Family Ties, and yes, that is Reba McEntire. Bert and Heather, they're like survivalist preppers, pretty much. Very gun-happy couple. We have the store owner, Walter Chang, and all of these people will come into play later. Once again, great ensemble movie. You think it's like just Kevin Bacon, but everyone plays off each other so well in this movie. It's awesome. And so back at Rhonda's station, we get our first glimpse of the Tremors underground. Just as she said, you know, these Tremors are leaving some pretty weird readings. But as she packs up her stuff, the ground just kind of like moves towards her truck and something tries to grab her foot right as she speeds off. This movie, as you'll see too, is like phenomenal at like hiding the monster and only really showing us signs or glimpses of it. And it really builds the tension up in the first act so well. For example, you know, the characters don't know this yet, but the giant worms can sense their every movement, right? And so every single sound they make, like Rhonda does here, just draws them closer and closer without them knowing. It's amazing. The boys continue to fight about leaving Perfection for good, as they've been doing up till now. And it seems like they're finally well on their way to Bixby, which I guess is like a slightly bigger town, to, you know, shoot for higher ground. But they do not get very far until they discover a friend of theirs up in an electrical tower, clutching a rifle to his chest. They climb up to get him down, and at first they think he's just drunk, but they actually discover that he has died. The doctor said he died of dehydration, which means the guy sat up there for 4 days and never came down. I, for one, find it kind of hard to believe that no one found him before this, because, like, I mean, as it's established, there's like 14 people in this town. I can't imagine there are many, like, roads in and out of it, or electrical towers for that matter, but like whatever, it's a movie. And just then we cut to some sheep who are like freaking out in a pen, and you know, the old farmer of course ignores them at first, and until he seems to be suddenly swallowed up by the ground itself. The worms are coming. Oh, you're not supposed to know that yet, though, still. Despite what happened, Val and Earl are still trying to drive out of town when they come upon the scene we just saw. The entire farm has been slaughtered. You know, the sheep guts are everywhere. I can't show this on YouTube. I don't think they'll like it. But I do have to praise this movie for, you know, not showing us a scene where all these sheep get ripped apart, because I would have cried. The aftermath is much more than enough. Thank you very much. And they find the dead farmer in the ground like this. And Kevin Bacon has this incredibly appropriate response, like I would, which made me laugh out loud because I would probably say the exact same thing.
What the hell's going on? I mean, what the hell is going on?
So these two incredibly weird things have happened within what, the span of an hour, maybe? So the buddies like try to head back into town, and on the way they try to warn these like two construction workers that there's this psycho murderer out like cutting people's heads off, which like we know it's the worms sort of as the audience, but honestly my first thought would not be giant violent worms either. It probably would be like maybe more of a human origin, so I can't really blame them for saying this. But of course, you know, these guys ignore them and they continue jackhammering into the ground, which of course draws the worms. And one of them drills directly into a worm's body. Then the worm like rips the jackhammer from the guy's hand, moves it through the concrete. Oh my god, I'm getting too excited. I gotta calm down. He rips it from the guy's hands and he starts like moving it through the concrete. And of course the guy's leg is wrapped up in the cord, right? So he gets tripped up. The next thing we know, this thing has dragged him up an entire hill, which causes an avalanche of rocks to fall perfectly on the other construction worker. Insanely good cinema, and we still haven't even actually seen the worm. Val and Earl end up back at the shop in Perfection again to warn everybody that, you know, us about what they still believe is a psycho murderer. And of course the phones are out, of course the phones aren't working, and the road is shut down, right? So now the plan is to go to Bixby and get the police out here. Good steps. These guys are just running into problem after problem, right? Because they can't go down the same road they did before because the road's now perfectly like blocked off by the avalanche. And so they leave and they go back to Perfection again, which I think is a little unnecessary, but that's my only nitpick really. Because they come back and they discover this like slug-like entity on the bottom of their truck. And at first they think, you know, oh, this is the whole thing. It's like a bunch of these little worms, but nope. In the next scene, which is kind of honestly one of the most harrowing scenes in my opinion, It's nighttime in the desert now, which is already terrifying. And the doctor from earlier and his wife are packing up their little campsite. It seems they plan on building a house out here, and they start talking about how all of their dreams are finally gonna come true, and they can finally like start building their dream life out here, which of course means they're gonna die within the next 2 minutes. Because just then, the generator suddenly gives out. When the doctor goes over to take a look, he's shocked to discover that it's just gone. It seems to just have sunk into the ground. But when he goes to pull the cord out, the generator shoots up in front of him. And at first he's like, maybe it's a geological thing. Wait, we gotta check this out. And his wife is like, no, honey, we gotta get the hell out of here. Which, good on her. Good for her. Because just as they're trying to get away, the doctor is, of course, swallowed up by the ground, which, ugh. Ugh. And she tries to pull him out, but it's not gonna work. The worm is too strong. I mean, God, as if getting buried underneath the ground is not bad enough, because then you get eaten by a giant worm. Oh, God. The wife tries to escape into the car, which is pretty smart. Again, good for her. But then she faces this other awful thing that, like, makes me so terrified. I hate it so much when it happens in these situations. The keys to the car are with her husband, who's now in the ground. With the worms. But honestly, too, it's no matter for the worms because they just kind of they keep just sticking their little tongues out on the window, and she's inside terrified and screaming. They go away for a second, and then the worms just decide to swallow the entire car into the ground. Yeesh, these things are strong. Keep that in mind. They swallowed I think it's a Volvo. And so now the plan is, because the road is out, they're gonna ride horses to Bixby for some help. And I'm already worried about these horses, man. I know what happens. You know what happens to horses in this kind of movie. They're not gonna make it. I mean, at this point, the worm has pretty much successfully killed kind of half the town. When the two besties come to the scene where the doctor and his wife were literally sucked underneath the ground, seeing this, they decide to just ride until Bixby and just not stop till they get there. But of course, it's not long until the horses catch wind of something they don't like, and the two are bucked off. And of course, of course, the horsies are eaten by the little worms until Earl shoots it off of him. This is the big reveal, right? This is the big the climax, sort of. You finally see the worm. They kind of start hypothesizing that it's oh, there must be a million of these little things. But no.
Must be a million of them. Nope, just one.
Just as they say this, this humongous worm explodes out of the ground. One giant worm with a bunch of little worms for tongues. Dude, the monster design is insane. This is the first time we get to see the monster in full, and boy was it worth the wait. Now, obviously, without the horses, these guys try to outrun the worm, which actually works against all odds for a little bit. They manage to just outrun him for a few yards until they come to this empty aqueduct, and they attempt to jump across, but obviously they can't make it. God, I love these boys. Luckily, as the worm is set on chasing them but has no eyes, the worm just kind of slams itself into the aqueduct and it knocks itself dead. And just then, Rhonda shows up because she just happens to be right there. That's never really explained, but again, whatever.
Hey guys!
And as she explains again, it has no eyes, so it has to rely on, tremors in the ground. So they got real lucky just now, but now they know you can't make noise. You can't make too much noise around these guys because they can sense you, but they can't see you. This scene also delivers my favorite line of the movie by far. The one that made me kind of fall head over heels for Kevin Bacon.
Hey, check this out! I found the ass end!
He's helping. Somehow Rhonda, the seismologist student, figures out there's only 3 more of these worms. They got 1. There's 4 in total, but there's 3 more out there somewhere. I applaud this movie again for not following the rule of 3s. I like it. There's 4 worms. More danger. And I do love how deeply Val defends his buddy here when he accidentally steps in a non-worm related hole.
Damn prairie dog burrow.
Little sons of bitches.
So Rhonda's seismograph goes off again, indicating that another worm is near, because they've kind of been making a lot of noise at this point still. So they all climb up onto a nearby rock, because they don't think the worms can climb, and they are right. So just kind of like this, you know? Now they're stuck here. You know, day goes into night, night becomes day again, and Val and Rhonda wake up kind of like snuggling with each other. Again, another thing I'll applaud about this movie is that the romantic subplot it's very minuscule. It's there because it has to be, I guess, but it's so not a focus at all, which is great. And it's probably very realistic given, you know, the giant worm situation. I would not be thinking about love right now, maybe at this very moment. The worm is still out there, so they have to figure out how to get off this rock. And while the boys kind of bicker about what to do next, Rhonda just freaking starts pole vaulting.
I know how to pole vault!
To other rocks, you know, which shows the boys she's actually like a really cool girl. I was gonna say gal, but she's a really cool girl. So they kind of just all go bounding across the rocks, which are all conveniently in pole vaulting range because like the production designer had to get more rocks. The first rock was real, I guess, but all the other ones within pole vaulting distance were put there on purpose. But I mean, look at this shot. I wonder what the rock budget was. And then after this like very narrow escape to Rhonda's truck, they once again go back to the store in perfection, even though they have a truck now and could, you know, in theory just kind of gun it through the sand to the mountains or to Bixby. But I guess they went back for Sandoz. I don't know. Killing worms will make you hungry. Kevin Bacon starts getting upset because nobody understands his love for dance.
Now look.
I'm sorry. Wait, sorry, wrong movie. No, he gets upset because he's figured out that the worms are actually getting smarter every time they interact with the humans. They're learning from the interactions. Like the same trick they pull is not gonna work twice with these guys. The 3 remaining worms have figured out, well, not to chase a human into an aqueduct first, and that perfection has a bunch of fresh meat in it, albeit, again, not a lot. And so the gang does have to find some way to get out of here somehow, right now. Of course, you know, Melvin, the bratty teenager, goes outside and loses his basketball to a worm. Because they're already here. And everybody panics and tries to, you know, find safe ground inside the store. But not before they spot the little girl hopping on her hopscotch down the road, headphones in, not a care in the world about the worms. This obviously attracts them and they go to attack her, but, you know, fortunately, Kevin Bacon, the hero he is, he does save her. Oh, God, I love him. Where are we? Rhonda falls into some trouble too, but Val saves her as well. However, not before she loses her pants to the worm, which honestly, it's a good saving tactic if you see it, but like, it's great. I mean, I love the granny panties. Unfortunately, the store floor is not enough to shield them from the worms, it turns out. And as the freezer rumbles, like we saw earlier in the movie, one of them just comes through the floorboard and just straight up eats the store owner. So RIP to him. This is a great scene. The worm is just ripping the store apart. The gang figures, you know, obviously the safest place to go is up. Like, the scene is incredible. Like, it's like the first like really action-packed scene where everyone's running around. It's great. Everyone but Rhonda ends up on the roof. She's on the water tower, I believe, and Melvin's on the shed. He made it to the shed. Everybody but the store owner makes it out okay. Everyone's up on the roof except for Reba McEntire and Michael Groves. Heather and Bert Gummer. They're back at their own, you know, doomsday prepped house, and they finally end up connecting with the gang over the radio. Now, again, these two are like survivalists, you know, doomsday preppers, so they're kind of excited that this is all happening. They've kind of just like been waiting for something like this. And if you thought the last scene was awesome, just wait, because this one blows it out of the water, literally. Val is like frantically telling them to get up on the roof, and of course they don't listen at first, as one of the worms just kind of busts through their basement wall. Instead of running to safety, these two just open rounds on the worm. I'm pretty sure this scene is only here because the director just like wanted Michael Gross and Reba McEntire to just open round after round on this worm. And honestly, I'm not mad about it. This is maybe the best scene in the movie. And the way they just like calmly shoot this thing over and over is hilarious. They're switching out all these little guns at first. And there's this one shot that's like it's the funniest shot in the movie. As they shoot this worm and run out of ammo, the camera just like slowly pans back to this entire wall of guns that they have. This literal power couple, I guess. And you know what? It does work. Bert kills him with the elephant gun.
Broke into the wrong goddamn rec room, didn't you bastard?
So awesome. I mean, everyone's celebrating. They're down to 2 worms now. But, you know, it's not long before one worm figures out it can just go ahead and, like, shake the entire store until it falls apart, pretty much. These things are shaking the crap out of all the foundations, including Nancy's house across the street. And Kevin Bacon figures out, God, he's so smart. He figures out that they must be kind of like studying the houses because they can sense the humans, but they can't like figure out where they are. And I love, there's like all these underground POV shots, which are terrifying. I mean, I have a fear of being buried alive, as I'm sure a lot of people do, but like this sends a shudder through my spine. They come up with this plan to use the tractor that they have in the town as like a decoy while they run to the bulldozer, which is very much slower than a truck. But they figure, you know, it's way too heavy for the worms to lift, right? Not like they didn't swallow an entire car earlier, but whatever. This somehow miraculously works. Because this is a movie. And Val runs toward the cat until, of course, the tractor falls over and the worms diverge to Val. Fortunately, Rhonda distracts the worms with a water pipe so he can make it over to the bulldozer. But they end up, like, taking away the ladder from her. So now she can't really get down. But that's, you know, in the grand scheme of things, that's not the most pressing issue. I'm still not really sure what the actual plan is here, but they all somehow end up on the bulldozer safe and sound. Meanwhile, Reba and her husband are making like homemade dynamite sticks with chemicals that they have in their house, which is just something they can do. The gang, or you know what's left of it, picks them up on the way and starts heading towards the mountains where they're gonna try and get help. And they can go to the mountains because they're higher ground. You know, these worms can't climb, as it's been established. But once you think they actually might make it over there, the dozer like hits this deeper patch of land that somehow nobody saw beforehand, and they drive straight down into it, which kind of, you know, puts the dozer out of service. Not good. They're also on the ground. Not good. Apparently the worms set up a trap.
They dug a trap.
See, they're getting smarter. They're adapting. So new plan. They need so many plans in this movie.
Damn it, Valentine, you never plan ahead.
You know, not having a plan. Okay, here's the plan.
That is the plan.
All right, here's the plan. Well, what's the plan? We're gonna have to come up with some sort of plan. Gotta have a plan.
We're gonna have to change that plan.
Here's the plan. In fact, they're coming up with a plan.
I got a goddamn plan!
So now they're all just stuck in the dozer, so they decide to use a stick of dynamite to distract the worms. While they run like hell over to, you know, yet another set of rocks. Lots of rocks sitting in this movie, but it's never really boring. This scene, I have to admit, Val starts yelling at Bert for something, but honestly, Kevin Bacon was like, it was just too hot for me to like pay attention to what he was saying. Sorry about that. I kind of fell for this guy, this version of Kevin Bacon. I don't know what the conflict was, so I'm sorry. But it's no matter because they decided to go fishing and try to like kill another worm with a stick of dynamite, and this actually also works. So that's 3 down. That means only 1 worm to go. But, you know, of course they try to pull the exact same move that they just did with the last worm. And of course this is a movie and the worms again are actively adapting. So the same trick's not gonna work twice, obviously. The last worm has just outsmarted the gang and winds up swallowing the dynamite and spitting it back up at them. This is just what I wish Dune was, honestly. Also, if it were me, I probably would have tried it with like, you know, again with like a longer fuse like that, like the Mario Party side game, you know? Somehow in all the confusion, Val, Earl, and Rhonda end up off in the field instead of on the rocks, which, you know, has been the only established safe place. I don't know why they're out there, but it seems like Kevin Bacon, Val, has now just like developed a vendetta against, sorry, I was gonna say Valdetta and then I decided it wasn't a good joke. He's developed a vendetta against these worms.
I got a goddamn plan!
So Bert gives him the last stick of dynamite. All 3 of them start running for the cliffside, and it's still unclear what the plan is until Val essentially baits the worm into going full speed towards the cliff, jumping out of the way at the very last minute as the last worm falls over to its death on the cliff.
Can you fly, you sucker? Can you fly?
That's 4. Ow. That's worm number 4, baby. They're all dead. Now safely back in town with all the worms defeated, Val and Earl talk next steps.
We could get in People magazine.
People? Hell. National Geographic.
He's thinking big. And yes, you know, the little romantic subplot is tied up nicely as Earl encourages Val to go for this, you know, clearly ugly, gross woman with whom he's clearly been like smitten the entire time. Tremors ends with Val getting rid of all his like pictures of his ideal ladies, and Val and Rhonda kissing against the beautiful blue sky of the California desert. The threat of giant worms obliterated. For now. And that's Tremors. And of course, you know, the outro song is Reba McEntire, who was actually phenomenal in this movie. I didn't know she could act, but I loved her character, as I did all the characters in this. There is truly so much to praise about this movie. When it came out in 1990, it was actually considered a box office bomb. I didn't know this. Kevin Bacon himself was actually worried it would tank his entire career, because he said himself he had been in like a string of bombs up until that point. And though it was indeed like not a huge success at the box office, it had a budget of $10 million and it wound up making about $16.7 million. It then became one of, if not the most rented movies on VHS in 1990, which is pretty impressive in and of itself, as that was the time that was getting way more popular. And because of this, it spawned like 5 sequels and a television show. However, none of these featured Kevin Bacon, which is a downvote, which is a no from me. And I mean, I guess the general consensus is that none of them really matched like the popularity or originality or lightning in a bottle that the first one did. But for all these reasons, I mean, Tremors remains like arguably one of the first cult classic films. Maybe not the first, I don't know. Well, however you define that. The other thing I really like about this movie is that they just don't explain where the worms are from. Like, the characters speculate, but even Rhonda, the student, says that they might predate the fossil record. However, she also implies that, you know, these worms existing for billions of years in the desert and only showing up now is kind of ridiculous too. But they just never offer like a true explanation for their existence, and that's kind of awesome. I feel like sometimes these movies are like obsessed with the lore of the monster and how they even got here and where their origins are, but I appreciate this movie's like nonchalance towards the characters that are like worried about their origins.
Look, these creatures are absolutely unprecedented.
Yeah, but where do they come from?
What's not important is where they're from. What's important is that they're here. And they are deadly. Dude, Tremors is just like such a bonkers concept, you know? The near perfect execution of it is what makes it work. It's so easy, right, to make a movie like this that has like an objectively silly concept, where all the characters like know how silly it is and are always kind of telling you that they know how silly it is. And it becomes kind of maybe too silly. It's a thin line. That horror comedy line is hard to like cross. And even Kevin Bacon was talking about how the marketing like for the movie was kind of, they didn't really know how to do it. But when people die in this movie, like the stakes are real. They die violently, even if it is via giant worm. And the characters are like, you know, well aware of the stakes, which just keeps it exciting. And then the casting is like near perfect, dude. I'm saying dude a lot. Every character is like really well fleshed out. They're all like their own people that you care about, you know? The creativity with the worms, I mean, like the all puppetry and the animatronics and the miniatures. Again, no CGI involved whatsoever. Crazy to think about now. It's just done so well. And the action and the dialogue, it just keeps it exciting. There's never a moment where you're bored with this movie, which is something I can't say of a lot of movies I've seen recently. Tremors is this like movie that was supposed to be an homage to like a B movie, right? Low budget, bonkers horror concept, and just an ensemble cast that was mostly unknown at the time, with a few large exceptions. But Tremors accidentally became this like unironically great and infinitely rewatchable movie. I've seen it 3 times already, and I watched it for the first time less than a month ago. One of those where you can always discover something new that you missed in the first viewing, and the second viewing, and the third viewing. Everything's set up and everything is like so well paid off. I've seen people like online saying that 2 and 3 are, you know, not that bad, maybe worth a watch. Anything beyond that might be beating a dead worm. So maybe I'll check those out soon, but you know, let me know what you think about Tremors below in the comments. I feel like I could probably talk about this movie forever, so I'm going to have to end it here. But hey, thank you so much for watching. I'm Abby, this is 1 Minute Off, and I'm really bad at baking, so it's the day before Thanksgiving, so I'm gonna go buy a pie for my friend who is really good at baking and bring it back to impress my family. Hopefully I can get it to them before any giant worms get to my car. Bye.